Welcome to this week's video. So for this week, I am doing another book review. Now, I think in the beginning of the year when I said that I was going to start doing these sort of standalone book reviews, I think I said that I was only going to talk about like books that I enjoyed. I'm not sure. I haven't gone back to see exactly, but I need to talk about this book. Because I don't know how to feel about this book. So this is going to be a book review slash rant slash I don't know if I hated it or if it just made me angry. Remember how in 2023 that my favorite book of that whole year was Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. Well, this book is the exact opposite of that. The book I'm talking about today is The Stolen Sisters by Louise Jensen. I don't know how I feel about this book. I finished it yesterday. And when I say that this book is the exact opposite of Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, I mean that in the sense of it had so many twists and turns, but each twist and turn and revelation made me angrier and angrier. So I don't know if I enjoyed this book. Because the writing was fantastic. That is not the problem here. So, what is this book about? Well, I bought this book thinking it was one thing, and it turned out to be something completely different. So, it takes place in somewhere in England. And it's these three young girls, 13-year-old Carly and 8-year-old twins Leah and Marie. And one day, 13-year-old Carly is babysitting her twin sisters. And they are step siblings. And that's important. That is important. Carly's mom remarried, and then they had Leah and Marie. So Leah and Marie and Carly, they don't have the same father. Leah and Marie do. His name is Simon. That's important as well. And Carly has a different father. So Carly is watching her sisters one day, and they get kidnapped outside in their backyard. The three girls get kidnapped. And the way that this book is set up by the blurb, it's the three girls get kidnapped, and then they're rescued. And it's sort of the effect of the kidnapping on sort of their adult lives. Because when you first meet them, they're pretty much a mess. Carly has like trust issues, and she is, single, and she's afraid to do relationships. Marie is an alcoholic, and Leah has a severe form of OCD, and she has this disease, also, not sort of mental illness that I'd never heard about, but apparently it's a real thing, and it's not that well known. Frioli? Frigoli? Something with an F. That's important too. So, the timelines flash back and forth to when they are young and sort of as adults. So, I'm thinking, okay, they're definitely, of course, being kidnapped is like traumatic and stuff, but they keep talking about stuff that happened in the past. So I'm thinking they went through some horrible shit while they were kidnapped. I'm thinking like the worst of the worst that could happen to little girls when they're kidnapped. But as we're reading along, they're kept in a room with a bed, a teddy bear, and snacks. They're kept by these two men. And they nickname them Doc because one guy's wearing Doc Martens and the other one has a mustache, so it's Doc and Mustache. But they manage to escape from Doc and Mustache. But like before that, like the men, they just sort of hold them there. They don't hurt them. They don't do anything to them. And then the girls escape. Like, okay. And then I'm trying to think, like, these three, like, Carly is the most sane of the group. Because you got Marie, who's an alcoholic, and Leah, who's, like, severely OCD. And it didn't sort of match to me the level of PTSD trauma that these women are experiencing as adults. Didn't sort of match with the events of the kidnapping. Now, Leah, you could say maybe, because when Leah and Marie, when the kidnappings happen, they're 8. And again, kidnapping just in general would be traumatic. And just her, them like having to escape through like dirt and bugs and like hiding and like bugs crawling all over them and like, yes. I could kind of understand Leah developing that OCD. But I don't know. It just felt like to me that there wasn't that much trauma to compensate for how effed up they were as adults. However, it's 20 years and the anniversary of the kidnapping is coming up. And all through like their years growing up, they were like the Sinclair sisters that got kidnapped. And like the true crime junkies were like all over them, the reporters were all over them, and sort of they've never sort of been able to escape that notoriety, I guess. So a week leading up to the anniversary, they start getting these notes. Sort of saying like 5 days left, 6 days, or 4 days left, 3 days left. And they don't know sort of who's sending the notes. Because they keep talking about him. So I'm thinking either like Doc or Mustache, because they talk about he's out now, that one of them went to jail and is now free. So I'm thinking that he's the one who's like sending these notes. Not so much. So, and Leah talks about the horrible thing that she did. So I'm thinking, since one of them went to jail, did Leah kill the other one? Because that's where my brain went. But no. We learn that the one who they actually had sort of any interaction with, Doc, once the kids escaped, I guess he thought that he was afraid to go to jail, or he sort of felt guilty for what he did because he ended his own life. So I'm guessing that it was Mustache that went to jail and is now out and is re-terrorizing these children. Nope. So, I'm trying to talk about this sort of linearly or sequentially so that I don't forget things. But I finished this yesterday, so it's still sort of relatively fresh in my mind, but I have a very bad sort of short-term memory. I'm learning that about myself as I get older. So, oh yes, and Leah is married. Leah is married. Her husband's name is George, and she has a son named Archie. And the pregnancy and birth so traumatized her that she doesn't want to ever have children again. And she sort of watches over Archie, as you can imagine a kidnapped woman would. A woman who had been kidnapped as a child, how do you think she would react with her own child? Helicopter mom, don't even cover it. Leah is terrified anytime Archie is out of her sight. And Leah and George have a sort of very difficult marriage because of Leah's OCD. So much so that she wears gloves around the house. She needs to keep everything clean. She's afraid of all germs. The whole 9 yards. Howie Mandel level times 1,000 from what I hear. So their marriage is really very much on the rocks. So much so that George has been seeking comfort elsewhere. Now, with the first escape thing, where they weren't actually hurt or anything and they got free, I was sort of I was sort of expecting more. I was expecting more trauma. That's just where my brain went. With George's affair, there were so many red herrings because you don't first learn who the affair is with. First, the author made it seem like the affair was with Marie, Leah's sister. And I was horrified by that. Then, the author made it seem like it was with Tasha, or Tash, Leah's best friend. And I was horrified and annoyed by that. Because I was like, ugh. You started off, you made it look like he was having the affair with Marie. Now you're making it look like he's having an affair with Tash or Tasha. Either way, it's still awful. But at least maybe with Marie, as horrible as it is, I could have sort of understood it though there more, because there was the connection to Leah, even though that made it more horrific, the fact that it's her sister. With Tash, I was kind of like, that's Leah's best friend. So I don't know if that would make it better or worse. But I was just annoyed by it. And then we learn, no, that's another red herring. The person he's actually having the affair with is Leah's therapist, Francesca. At that point, I was just annoyed. And, like, her therapist, really? And the fact that her therapist was like, you know, like listening to her, all of Leah's problems and like all this stuff and like helping her with her mental illness, and you're boinking her husband? So that revelation annoyed me. So with the notes, she's getting these notes, and all three of them are getting the notes. And so I'm thinking that it's Mustache, because they're saying he's out. And so Leah is around and she thinks that she's seeing him everywhere. And then we learn that, no, Mustache died in prison. So the him that is out of prison, the him that they are talking about, their father. Leah and Marie's father, Simon, was in prison and is supposedly sending these terrorizing notes to his daughters. Why would they assume that he was the one sending the notes? Because he planned the kidnapping. He was behind the whole thing. And oh, by the way, Mama knew. Their mother, who, in the beginning of the book, you think that she and the husband are not together anymore because the trauma and the guilt of having their children kidnapped and they couldn't do anything to protect them, broke down their marriage and ruined the family. Oh, nay. Papa Simon comes up with this plan because they're poor and are going to lose the house. So, of course, the rational, logical solution to that problem is to fake your children's kidnapping so that people will feel sorry for you and donate money. And that way you won't lose the house and that the family won't be separated. So, some kind of reasoning that the family was going to be separated, and then Carly and her mom would have to go back on like social assistance because, oh my God. Not saying the social assistance is any picnic. Believe me, you're talking to a girl who grew up in sort of the social assistance welfare family, or not system. But that was his reasoning, that they had to, that there was no other way they would fake the kidnapping, and at first, Mama was very weakly disagreeing with that plan and saying, like, no, we really shouldn't. But he very easily talked her into it because money. So, the children were going to get kidnapped, but they'd be fine because they're children. They're resilient. They were going to forget about it, and then Papa Simon was going to make them all feel better with a trip to Disneyland. And that was going to make them forget all about the kidnapping. One little thing, though. Little 8-year-old Marie accidentally overhears this plan. Yeah. So, poor little 8-year-old Marie knows what's happening when they get kidnapped. Granted, this little baby goes to her father and tries to talk him out of it, but he convinces her that it's the best thing for their family and that he loves them and will protect them and that they won't get hurt. Which kind of falls back to the fact that Mustache and Doc did not hurt them. There was just the trauma of being kidnapped, these children. And 13-year-old Carly, her brain sort of went where my brain went of what usually happens to young girls when they're kidnapped. So of course she was traumatized and they're like desperate to escape, and they like, you know, when they're hiding from them and they're like running away from them, and it's just awful. So and then there's a point where she overhears, Carly, when they're kidnapped, overhears Doc and Mustache discussing that because they do escape once, but they get caught again. And Carly overhears them talking about the fact that if we lose the kids, we don't get our money. So now I'm like, while they were kidnapped, I was starting to think like, oh, are they going to traffic these kids? Like, for inappropriate monetary gain for certain acts kind of trafficking? But no, it was just Papa Simon who was going to pay these men to kidnap and hold his daughters, his children, for 3 days, or just however long enough it took to get enough money from the public. So, poor little Marie, now you understand why she grows up to be the hot mess that she is. She grows up to be an alcoholic, and even worse, we find out she's not just an alcoholic, she's actually a drug addict as well. And that actually ends up being the secret that she and George are keeping, because Marie is at a club trying to score drugs when she sees George and Francesca together. So George helps Marie out with money occasionally so that she'll keep her mouth shut about George and Francesca. So that is the secret that they're keeping. So all these years, poor little baby Marie had been keeping this secret. And Now, the mother, the fact that the mother knew, little Marie was 8 when the father talked her into keeping quiet about this plan. Mama is a grown-ass woman. And this is her children that she's being okay with terrorizing. Never mind that Doc and Mustache, again, don't actually do anything to the girls beyond holding them. The children do not know that. Do not know that they have no plans to actually hurt them. Marie, in her little 8-year-old brain, does. But she can't say anything because she promised Papa. So this, unfortunately, messes with Marie's mind. And Leah and her marriage with George is just a mess. And then Marie goes missing. About the same week that sort of the notes start coming. Now that's important. Because throughout the whole book you get like the back and forth. And then it goes back 1 week. And you get Carly and Marie. And Marie is telling Carly about how, yes, she has a problem drinking and she's going to try to get clean, but it's not just drinking. She admits that she's actually doing drugs. And that she wants to go to rehab. And Marie finally tells Carly about the fact that she knew about the kidnapping. And there's something else. So, you may think that Papa Simon is a piece of shit for wanting to put his daughters through that, the kidnapping, for money. But just when you think he can't be a bigger piece of shit, you find out he's an even bigger piece of shit than you thought he was. Because Marie ends up telling Carly that it was only supposed to be Carly that got kidnapped. That's why in the room where they're kidnapped, there's only one bed, or one mattress, one teddy bear that was supposed to make a 13-year-old Carly feel safe, consoled by the fact that she's been kidnapped, and a small supply of food, because it was only supposed to be for Carly. Now, let's go back to remember the whole family dynamic. Carly and the twins do not have the same father. So Carly is not Papa Simon's biological daughter. So that was why he was perfectly fine with her getting kidnapped and traumatized. The twins were not supposed to get kidnapped with her. So that's why when they all get sort of reunited, the father is like in this panic and grabs onto his daughters, his twin daughters, and is like, oh thank God, that he was so like panicked. because it was only supposed to be Carly. So this piece of shit picked Carly to be the one to be kidnapped because he didn't want to do that to his actual biological daughters. He was okay with doing it to her because she wasn't his actual biological daughter. So when Leah finds out that it was the father that did it, because eventually they all find out that it was the father that did it. I don't remember how. Right now, I'm not sure if it was Doc or Mustache or that talked. I'm not sure. But the police find out. And then I think it's Leah finds out he's paroled once. And then Leah frames him she's so like afraid of him getting out, of her father, her actual father getting out, that she frames him for something to get him sent back to prison. And I was fine with that. So, Marie goes missing after this conversation with Carly. And then the notes start. And Leah is, of course, like in a panic, and she's thinking that because the father is out now, it's been like 20 years, and the father is now out. And then Archie goes missing. Her little boy. Her worst nightmare happened. Archie goes missing. And she gets a note saying that to meet at where they were held when they were children. To meet at that, it was like some old military base, something. So she rushes there. And she finds Marie. But Marie is dead. And then she finds Carly with Archie. And at first, I thought it was, oh my God, the fathers kidnapped Carly and Archie. No. Carly kidnapped Archie. That's right. Carly. Now at this point, each revelation that has happened in this book has so infuriated me. But I can't stop reading because I need to know how this shit show wraps up. So apparently, when Marie tells Carly all about this, how when she was 8, she'd overheard the plan, and so when she was kidnapped, she actually knew what was going on. And when she tells Carly that it was only supposed to be her that got kidnapped, Carly supposedly has a mental break. And decides that she can't trust anybody in the world. Everyone that she thought who loved her has lied to her. The world is a horrible, terrible place. Archie is so pure and good. He is literally too good for this world. So she decides that she's going to kill Archie. And Leah is, of course, in a panic because that's her baby. And she's like, no, you can't think like that. The world is good. And then Carly's like, look at you. Like, you're such a fucking mess that you can't even, like, touch something without gloves on. Like, why would you want to live in this world after what this world did to you? And so then, like, Leah starts to prove to her that Leah is trying to be better and is trying to overcome her OCD. She starts, like, rubbing herself with dirt and, like, touching the dirt and, like, like, without the gloves on and all this stuff. But Carly is sort of not convinced. And she's getting ready to suffocate Archie. So Leah manages to grab this piece of glass. Now I'm thinking, logically, that she's going to stab Carly with that glass. No. Leah stabs herself with the glass. Because, and I'm paraphrasing here, she knew that that was what it was going to take for Carly to stop. Because Carly was going to be worried about her and not want her to be hurt. And so she was going to stop what she was doing to Archie to help Leah so that Leah didn't die. That was a hell of a gamble. But apparently it works. Because Carly immediately goes into care mode to take care of Leah and go out and get help for Leah. And then, like, the police sirens, you hear the police sirens because Leah managed to text George and tell him that Archie had been kidnapped and sort of tell him where they were. But she doesn't tell the police that it was Carly that kidnapped Archie. I don't know. I don't remember who she says took Archie. But somehow Carly leaves and disappears. And Leah covers for her. And this made me so angry as well. Because I'm sorry. The cheese has clearly slid off Carly's cracker. This was a woman who, going back to when they were kidnapped, the Mustache would, when they were hiding and running, Mustache would taunt them with the Three Blind Mice song. 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. So he would taunt them with that song as he was chasing them. So, the week of the anniversary, when they start getting the notes, who, by the way, it was Carly sending the notes, because that week was the week that Marie told her everything about how she knew about the kidnapping, how it was only supposed to be Carly that got taken, and that caused Carly's psychotic break. Carly leaves 3 dead mice on Leah's doorstep. By the by, with their eyes gouged out. I'm sorry. Papa Simon is a piece of shit. However, I cannot help wondering if Papa Simon knew that there perhaps was not quite something right with Carly. So that's why he was kind of more willing to sacrifice her. And I say this because we all know that one of the first signs of a serial killer is harming animals. Now, the author leads us to assume that Carly was fine as a 13-year-old, that as clearly the kidnapping was traumatic, but that her only issues as an adult was having trouble trusting people. No. If you have that capability inside of you, where you are killing and disfiguring animals, there's something a little off in the cabeza to begin with. So, Papa Simon is a piece of shit, even made more so by the fact that he only wanted his non-biological daughter to be the one to get kidnapped. But I can't help thinking, maybe Papa Simon knew that there was something off about Carly. Because that stuff does not just happen. That kind of a psychotic break where you're kidnapping toddlers and killing animals does not just happen in the space of 1 week. That is something that you already had the capability for in your head. So I don't know if maybe Papa Simon kind of sensed that, and that's why he cared more about his biological daughters. But, so now Carly has sort of stepped away. She's gone somewhere, we don't know where, but she's gone away. And it's time for the funeral. Poor Marie. And when we find Marie dead, and we find out that Carly's the one behind this whole shit, logically, Leah's question to Carly is, and the reader is sort of wondering as well, did you kill Marie? And then we flash back to what actually happened was that Carly found Marie, that Marie actually is the one that led Carly sort of to the old military base, and that when she was there, supposedly Marie, because Carly gave her money, supposedly for her to like go to rehab or what have you, but of course Marie spent it on drugs, and she overdosed and died. And that didn't help Carly's state of mind, and then that's when she went and kidnapped Archie and that whole showdown happened. But so now it's time for the funeral. And the mother is there at the funeral, which the fact that they have any kind of relationship with their mother at all astounds me. Because throughout the, most of the book, before you learn the actual truth, you're thinking that, oh, the mother is pulled away from them, and they've pulled away from the mother because of the guilt of what happened and blah, blah, blah. But then when you learn that the mother was behind it, I'm surprised that they even attempt any kind of contact with her. At all. Ever. But she's there at the funeral. Okay, fine. And yes, the Papa Simon is out of prison. But he's not there at the funeral. Out of respect for Leah. And Leah asks if the mother is seeing him again, is still with him. And the mother says, yes, because I love him, and forgiveness has to be a part of love. And apparently, you can't be an independent woman, and you need the dick. The dick is just that good that you would choose him over your children yet again. And she says that. I'm adding the dick part, but Leah basically says, so you're choosing him over us again. And then that's when she goes into the I love him and forgiveness is a part of love and blah, blah, blah. And then, in possibly the worst part of this book that made me, if I wasn't out in public on the bus when I read this, I would have screamed in rage. Forgiveness is a part of love, and so love means I have to forgive him. And then Mama says to Leah, he's forgiven you. Excuse me? Excuse me? And Leah, understandably, stares at her mother and is like, excuse me? Yes, he's forgiven you for framing him that second time with the false accusation so he would go back to prison. Bitch, you are lucky that Leah did not frickin' stab him in his face. He forgives her? So, So then, Leah asks her mother, she's like, so you're going back to him? And the mother says, yes. Yes, but you don't have to worry about seeing him around because we're leaving the country. We're gonna go to Scotland. And then there's this line about Leah basically like that she could be angry about that, but that she was going to choose to let them go with her blessing because her mother looked so anguished at the thought that Leah would be upset about the fact that her mother was going to go off with her kidnapper, because that's totally an overreaction if Leah would get upset about that. So Leah was going to make the decision to tell her mother that she could go with her blessing, because the mother, in some weak ass petition to her daughter, actually says, but like, if you're not okay, yeah, we were planning to go to Scotland and sort of just be out of your way so that we didn't throw our love in your faces, basically. But if you're not okay with it, I won't go with him. I'll stay here. And then Leah is like thinking that like, no, that like her mother would only grow to resent her and blah blah blah, so that she didn't want her mother to like live without happiness. Like, her mother deserves any kind of happiness after what she did to her children. But that Leah was going to tell her to go. So fine. Then, after like the funeral is over, the service and everything, Carly does show up again. And her and Leah sort of have a moment. And I can't remember. Yeah, Carly does end up going like to the showing up at the funeral, like after like pretty much everybody has left. She kind of sneaks into like where Leah is without like anybody knowing that she's there. And Leah kind of like thinks to herself that like she was glad that her sister was there with her, and that like she was going to help her sister find the help that she needs. And that is sort of how the book ends, but then there's the epilogue where like George confesses about while Leah's healing in the hospital, George confesses about the affair, and then the epilogue is her and George sort of working their way back together. Wait. Oh, there was so much that infuriated me about that ending. That Leah lied to the police about the fact that it was Carly. And that after like Carly comes, secretly to the funeral, and Leah, is like there with her and is like gonna help her get the help that she needs. Bitch, no. Carly should have been arrested and locked up, and that's where you could help her get the help that she needs. Not having her free psychotic ass out here where God knows, like, we're supposed to believe that she did all this sick horrible stuff. But that was just a one-time thing. No. No, no. You arrest that crazy bitch. And you explain what happened, and then that way in prison or in, hopefully, in a psychiatric facility of some kind, that's where she goes. You do not keep her involvement in your child's kidnapping a secret to protect her because she's your sister out of some misplaced loyalty. I do like the smart loyal thing that Leah did was decide that nobody was ever going to know that Marie, the poor little 8-year-old Marie, knew about the kidnapping when they were kidnapped. That nobody was ever going to know that. That was like a right thing that she did. Another thing that I did like was in terms of the George Francesca affair. When Leah finds out, she asks George, do you love her? Francesca, do you love Francesca? And George says to her, I thought I did. But then, you know, with what happened with you, and like, I realized that I truly love you and that I could never be happy with her, that I wanted us and our family, blah, blah, blah. Which, I'll get to my thought on that in a second. But I did like George's answer. And I fucking loved Leah's reaction to George's answer, because it is a hill that I will die on. If a man cheats on you, it was a one-time thing, it'll never happen again. I felt nothing for her. That makes it worse. And she explained it perfectly. The fact that he actually felt something for Francesca means that there was actual emotions involved. Emotions that you can't help. If he'd felt nothing for Francesca, and it was just a one-time thing, that would be worse. Because you're telling me that you broke the vows of our marriage just so you could have sex with somebody? Not because you loved them, but just because you were horny and wanted a hole to stick it in. How is that? It was a one-time thing. It meant nothing to me. How is that better for some women than I genuinely had feelings for her? I don't understand the mindset. I'm going to forgive him because it meant nothing to him. How do I know when he has sex with me it means something to him? How? How do you know? How do you know that you, the wife, are not just a hole to stick it in? Because if he's capable of going out and finding it somewhere else, then the act must mean nothing with you too. Saying this, she takes him back. I would not. And she even says, I used to think that women who took back men who cheated were weak. But no, we're going to fight for our marriage. We're going to this, that, and the other. Fine. You do you. Personally, me? No. No, no, no. Now, when I say that It is better if he cheats on you with somebody that he actually has feelings for. I'm not saying that I would take him back on that condition. I would never take back a man who cheated on me. But at least if he cheated on me with somebody that he cared about, the relationship with us would still be over. But I wouldn't hate him. Because when you fall in love with somebody, you can't help your feelings. You being horny and just going off and finding some hoochie to stick it in, you can help that. You can help that. So, I would hate the cheater in that circumstance. So, that I didn't. It was supposed to be this, nice, sweet reunion with them, working back to get back together and working on their marriage and all this stuff. That wouldn't be me. So, that's how we end the book. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this book. Because Pieces of Her with Karen Slaughter had twist after insane revelation. But each one was more and more awesome and just jaw-dropping and just fantastic. Every revelation here just made me more angry. This book definitely ended up not being at all what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know how to feel about it. With the one other rant video that I have on here, Destiny by Sally Boutman. If you haven't watched that video, it's on here. I would give it a watch. It's entertaining. With that one, I knew that I just simply hated that book. And with Somebody's Baby by Charlotte Vale Allen, hated that book. With this one, the writing was good. I was compelled to keep reading, but it was sort of like a literal train wreck. I felt like Rachel in that moment where Chandler is proposing to Monica, but it's only his first proposal to her where they had a fight and he's trying to make it up to her by proposing. And Rachel is sitting there and she knows that this is horrible. And she's just like, oh, I can't stop looking at it. That's how I felt about this book. I don't know. Because every moment I hated it. I hated everything that happened in this book. But I enjoyed reading it. I don't know. How do I reconcile that? Everything in this book made me angry, but it was well written and wouldn't let me stop reading it. I felt like I was kidnapped and held hostage by this book. And I couldn't stop reading it. And I kept, like, because I read, like, on my commutes and on my breaks at work, at the evil day job. And I kept wanting to go back to it, to see what new fuckery would unfold. So, did I hate this book? Did I enjoy this book? I don't know. I'm questioning everything. So, would I read more of Louise Jensen's books? I'm scared to now. I don't think that I would. But I don't know. Because this book definitely kept me reading. Compelling as... But... does that mean I liked it? What is life? What is worlds? What is words? What is... So this is pretty much how I was sitting last night when I finished this book. I don't know how to feel. There's rage. But it was good. Good writing. Good suspense. Good readability. It just pissed me off so much. So I think that's all I can say. That's the review. Was it a rant? I think so. But did I hate this book? I don't know. And that's where we're gonna leave it. So, that's gonna be it for this week's video. If you'd like to see more, weird book reviews like this, hopefully there'll be more of ones that I actually love, and I know that those are coming up. Ones that I actually love. But I'm sure that the ranty ones and the weird ones like this are probably going to be more popular, because that tends to be the case. So subscribe if you want to see more of this fuckery. But that's going to be it for this week's video. Follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/authorejamie. Like my Facebook page at facebook.com/authorejamie. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!